to talk about the idea we need a way to differentiate between who's on our side and who's against us. And I think in today's day and age, it needs to not be a racial boundary. It needs to not be a country boundary. It needs to not be any sort of boundary that has anything to do with anything except the concept of good versus evil. And so, like, how do you determine what evil is and where do we draw the line, essentially, is the question, I guess, that we're going to get into today. So, I want to posit the idea that, like, freedom of religion here in the United States doesn't actually mean the freedom to be atheist. Not atheist in the way that atheists are using it today. Atheists are using it to mean anti-moral values. And I'm positing and letting you know that freedom of religion here in the United States does not include the legal right to be anti-moral. It never has. If it was the case that being anti-moral was protected by law, then we should have no prisons. We should have no law enforcement whatsoever. We could not even have law in general. We could not even have government in general. So let's go over the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence says, "The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation." And then it goes on to say, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness." The concept of laws being self-evident means that the Declaration of Independence is drawing upon the idea of a sovereign power, of a God, or of an objective truth, of some moral objective outside of the concept of mere dictates of man. That's important because it means that the idea of freedom of religion doesn't include the idea to be anti-moral. It doesn't include the idea to go against those self-evident truths that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Right there in the Declaration of Independence, we have the idea that God does in fact exist. And so if we then go on further, because the Declaration of Independence came first, and then we have the Bill of Rights later, and in the Bill of Rights it says, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances." This does not include the right to be anti-moral. Because if it was to include the right to be anti-moral, then we wouldn't have prisons, we wouldn't have law enforcement, we couldn't have government in general. Hello, how's it going? So the right to act on full atheism in the United States is not a right that is protected by law legally, and it shouldn't be interpreted that way, because otherwise, we just have murderers out in the street, and we just can't do that. It doesn't matter how you worship God, let's say, or how you decide to enact these good things. Can you be mod to help filter trolls? Send me a message on Discord. I said email last time, but I actually realized I don't have my email up, so send me a message on Discord and we'll talk. The point is, that's the line that we need to be drawing. We need to be drawing a line against those who agree with and want to preach anti-moral beliefs. if people want to agree with and preach the idea that humans don't have value or that morality doesn't exist, this is where we should be drawing the line. It shouldn't necessarily be Christians versus atheists, necessarily, air quotes, because a lot of the atheists who call themselves atheists actually do believe in moral values. So when pressed, these people say that there is moral value, that there is truth, that there is goodness, I don't care what label they're using to call themselves. I care about those moral truths. So that's the line that we need to be drawing here in this country. It shouldn't be based on race. It shouldn't be based on country. It should be based on a person's morals. And if they have good moral values, then we should be moving towards them. Frankly, those good moral values do coincide with there being a God, with there being Jesus Christ. And so to me, it is actually a war against atheists and Christians here in the United States. And not only here in the United States, but in the world over. Because, as I've talked about it in the past, there are these two churches. There are only two churches in the world. Not to say that there are only two organizations of men, but there are only two branches of philosophical belief. The branch that is attached to creation, and then the branch that is attached to destruction. And these are in direct opposition to one another. So most of the religions that are out there right now who actually do preach an objective moral law, and I don't mean that morals come from the self, I don't mean that morals come from society, and I don't mean that morals come from conflicting gods who have different points of view. I mean that there is one objective moral truth. This truly, at the root, only coincides with the idea that there is the Abrahamic God, or that there is Jesus Christ. However, in our world, in the United States at the least, we're mixed in with both the good and the evil, and oftentimes it's really hard to tell which people are actually those who follow that church of creation and which people are those who follow that church of destruction. Because you have Christians saying that they're Christian and yet doing things that are horrible and destructive, and then you have atheists saying that they're atheists and yet they agree to a staunch moral value. So I think what we need to be looking at in terms of the law is that we are outlawing those truths that we hold to be self-evident. And those truths that we hold to be self-evident, I think, should be the fact that reality itself should be preserved. And humans, as part of that reality, should be preserved. And anyone who disagrees with that idea, let's kick them out. Let's guardrail against those people. Let's actively discriminate against evil. That's what it's been for all of history, and I don't know why our modern society has decided to make different choices, but let's move back to what it has been historically, which is if people are anti-human, they go to jail, or even capital punishment. They don't get to be part of our society anymore. Can I flip this camera so that I can show you guys more stuff? I wanted to show you the fact that God has been within our societies for a really long time. Oh no. I closed my tabs, damn it. I wanted to show you guys that we actually say prayers for the Congress. When Congress starts, every time Congress starts, we say a prayer before Congress starts. Let me see if I can find in my... Damn it, I don't know. I must have closed out of it. That sucks, because I definitely had it all pulled up and ready. Well, I'll have to show you another time. That sucks. I'll come back another time and show you again. I don't think I prepared that well for that. Well, I actually prepared super well, but I just closed it all, I guess. I wanted to show you that we say prayers. We also have In God We Trust as part of our license plates. We also have In God We Trust as part of our coins. God and government have historically gone together, because without having the idea, the concept that there is a right and wrong, we can't have government, because how can there be laws without there being a right and wrong? Control plus H for history. Let me try that. Control plus H for history. I can see my history, but it's like everything that I looked up isn't here. I don't know if I looked it up on a different browser. I probably did. I probably looked it up on Mullvad, so it deletes itself. Divine insight does not equal immutable truth. Divine insight is personal revelation. God's commandments do equal immutable truth. However, your perception of God's commandments does not equal immutable truth. That is correct. But God's commandments themselves and God's existence itself, and it is immutable truth. Dang. Well, I might end this stream for tonight and come back another night because I wanted to show you guys us praying for Congress, and I deleted all my things. So, all right, that's going to be my thing for tonight. You meant that they're basically the same thing. God's divine insight does equal immutable truth. Is that what you meant? Did you mean that God's insight does equal immutable truth? Peace. I wanted to give 7-6 a moment. Yes, okay, yeah. God's insight does equal immutable truth, but people's perceptions of that insight is where the signal can get a little skewed. I'm a little tired today. Let's just do this another day. I'm going to come back on another day and I'll be better prepared. All right, so hi, Jay. Sorry, I'm going to leave, but it's nice to see you. Come back another time. All right, bye, everyone.